So I know that a lot of people go back and forth about whether or not it's appropriate to have, kids following you on your social media platform or you following kids on your social media platform. My big thing is that if you don't do anything, you being the grown-up, you're not doing something that is embarrassing or against the law or providing a bad example for kids. Why not? Why not?
This is the remix.
Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nessie, and the House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing tools and tips that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators just like you and have them share their stories. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the House of EdTech. You are listening to episode 103 of the House of EdTech. And if you're wondering why all of a sudden Chris Nessie's voice became buttery smooth and amazing, well, that's simply because this isn't Chris Nessie. It's AJ Bianco, co-host of Podcast PD with Chris and Stacy. So Chris isn't feeling too great. He had to point to the bench. He had to find the pinch hitter. Gave me the helmet, gave me the bat, said to me, go ahead, hit a home run. So I am here in Chris's absence to hold the reins of this amazing show. And this is a dream come true. I got to be honest with you all. I have been listening to the House of EdTech for years now. And to have the ability to host this show on my own, this is an honor. But don't worry. This episode is going to be just like any other episode you listen to on the House of EdTech. You'll even get to hear Chris. I know. I'm sorry too. But it's his show, so you got to give him a little spotlight. So today, on this episode, just like any other, you're going to have my EdTech thought, my recommendation, the featured content, which will be with Lindsy Stumpenhorst, and she'll be talking to Chris about Instagram and leveraging social media in education, and of course, our House of EdTech VIP. So here we go. I hope you're ready for a great episode. And here is my EdTech thought. This EdTech thought is for the risk takers, those educators who are trying new techniques, methodologies, ideas for their classrooms and for their schools. We see you, and we appreciate you taking your risks. We understand how hard it is as educators to try something new because we don't know if it's going to succeed. We don't know if our students are going to respond to it. I know in my classroom, I try to take risks on a daily basis. And honestly, it doesn't always work for me. There have been several times where I have totally struck out on a new tech tool, a new idea, a new project, even a seating arrangement. And I know we all have faced that before. So for you out there who are the risk takers, we see you. We appreciate the fact that you are bringing these new ideas into our classrooms. We appreciate the fact that you are trying to change the way our students learn and to change the dynamic of a school. Our students need to see that failure is okay. Our students need to see that if you put hard work into something, no matter what the outcome is, the way that you got there is what matters the most. So for all you out there who are the risk takers, give yourself a pat on the back and keep pushing forward. Don't allow one setback or one small failure to ruin the thing that you see. We all have a vision for our classrooms and for our schools. And if your vision is to take risks and have your students learn from the risks that they take, then you're doing the right thing. Our students are going to remember exactly what you do, and they're going to model what you do. So keep putting it out there, keep taking risks, and don't stop doing what you're proud of. This episode's EdTech recommendation is Time.Graphics. Time.Graphics is a free online timeline maker. Time.Graphics provides you the possibility to compare, put together, collaborate, and analyze any data. As a social studies teacher, Time.Graphics is a great tool for my students to help them understand many different concepts. So we're dealing with wars in social studies. Time.Graphics allows you to collaborate and create an interactive timeline so you can see the events that led up to different battles and different wars and different ideas throughout social studies. The best part about Time.Graphics, it is a great tool for students to collaborate with. Students can collaborate, work on different ideas together, and they can even embed their Google Sheets. They can embed YouTube videos, and they can embed pictures. So they are able to make their timeline come alive. Now, is Time.Graphics only something used in a social studies classroom? No, of course not. You can use Time.Graphics to keep track of your personal achievements and your results, and you can even focus on your goals to track your goals, how well you're doing, and what you need to do to accomplish these goals. I'm telling you, Time.Graphics is a new tool that I've been looking at, and I really think it's something you should try in your classroom or your personal life. And that is my EdTech recommendation. Without further ado, here is Chris with today's featured content with his guest, Lindsy Stumpenhorst. Take it away, Chris.
Joining me now on the House of EdTech via Zencastr is Lindsy Stumpenhorst. Lindsy is a connected elementary school principal in a rural community in Illinois, about 2 hours west of Chicago. And she expects her students and her teachers to work hard, but she doesn't expect them to do this alone. Through her own growth, she knows that she is also providing opportunities for continued development to everybody around her. Lindsy is married and has 2 wonderful children, and that's an understatement because I've seen them on Instagram and they're cute as buttons. She is a social media savvy leader. She leverages Twitter, Instagram, and Voxer for a variety of different things, and she joins me now here on the House of EdTech. Welcome aboard, Lindsy.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for having me.
So the reason I wanted to bring you on here for a few minutes is because you are leveraging Instagram and Twitter and Voxer. And, I say it right here in the description that you are social media savvy, specifically with Instagram. So can you just let the listeners know about how you decided to get onto Instagram and what is appealing about it to you to start off?
Well, thanks, Chris, for calling me savvy. I would say that I sometimes feel like I'm muddling through deep waters, but I have found the impact that social media has had with me personally and professionally. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a background, it's been a few years, since I was on Twitter, Facebook, and Voxer. Those things are kind of something that I started off with in the social media education platform. And my husband never saw the relevance. He's in construction. And so he was on Instagram and he started to connect with a bigger audience. And so as I was preaching to him about the impact Twitter could have, he was preaching to me about the impact Instagram could have. And so we kind of both switched platforms and started kind of learning from each other, if you will, because we were both experts in 2 totally different social media platforms. Instagram kind of just took off for me. I started off just posting on my feed. And as you probably already know, you can just post pictures or videos and then leave a comment below. It's not like Facebook where you leave a status. And once I started to kind of dip my toe into that water and felt more comfortable, I started to do the stories. And that's where I found the engagement with people who I follow and who follow me really maximize the potential, because the conversation was real and relevant. And I started making personal connections with not only educators, but parents of students at my school and parents of kids who had questions or wanted advice on what to do with their kiddos. And so that's really where I've seen the impact, is just, reaching out and kind of pushing down that wall between just kind of sharing my story and saying, who else? Anyone else? Raise your hand if, and just seeing, who I can connect with.
I love that. And the fact that I can also relate to having a spouse who inspires you and pushes you. And from my perspective, she says something and I listen. That's just how it is. Now, when you get into Instagram, and actually, if you could share, what was it that your husband shared that finally really pushed you to put a toe in the water?
Well, I think he just bugged me enough. And so I opened an account, but I didn't see the relevancy for me for probably 6 months. And Twitter was the same way. And I think, I can sit here and preach that Instagram's where it's at, but until you see the relevance yourself and you take that step forward and make those connections, you can't just take my word for it. And the same thing happened when I started an account. I probably had an account, like I said, for 6 months before I finally just started to get it. And it was on my own terms and it was through my own choice. I'm kind of stubborn like that. And so once I found that relevancy, then it just took off from there.
Well, actually, and that's what I'm hoping, that as people are listening to this conversation, that hopefully by the end, either they're going to start an Instagram and start to explore it and find the meaning and the relevance for them, or if they've already got it, to say, hey, maybe I can use it in this different way and maybe apply it more towards what I'm doing professionally, or like what you're saying, make those connections and, in a sense, open yourself up a little bit to the world. And I think what I really enjoy about your feed and your stories is it's not just education, leadership, principle, all that stuff. It's your family, it's your children, and you come across, and I believe it's genuine, as an actual human being who has, happiness and things that you struggle with. And I really like that you share really all of you, unless there's that part of you that you're not going to share, which that's okay too.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. And, there's such a struggle, I think, in social media. And, when you look at statistics of teenagers and kids using social media and what that does to their mental state, I really want to encourage anyone using Instagram, Facebook, whatever, to not just share all the good stuff, because that's where we start kind of that competition attitude and maybe that I'm not good enough because look at what everyone else has and I don't have, or look at how happy this person is and I'm not that happy. And how can I, just that's not healthy for anyone. And so I think just sharing the highs and the lows and everything in between, I just want people to know that that's real life. It's not real life just, to post you in a fancy outfit with your hair all done, walking through the hallways of a school. That's not real life. Now, that being said, you obviously can't post everything, especially working in a school environment. There are tons of things that just wouldn't be appropriate, aren't good social practices that you don't post. But, as long as you have kind of a good moral standard, that hasn't been a problem.
So then I have to ask, going to the Verizon store in your PJs, that was on the right side of the moral line.
By the way, my new iPhone 10, I am loving it. I am absolutely loving it. The portrait mode on this baby is phenomenal. Anyhow, yeah, we had PJ day at school, and I thought it would be hilarious to do a quick poll on my Instagram story, just asking if people would judge me if they walked into Verizon and saw me in my pajamas from school. And most people said no. So, but of course, when I walked in, the first thing I said to anyone that was in standing or listening area, just so everyone knows, it was PJ day at school today. This is not common practice to walk around like this.
Now, I've got to be honest. I saw that. I voted yes. I said go for it.
You would judge me? Really? Oh, come on.
No. No, yes to go and do it. Not no, I wouldn't.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Yes to go and do it. Okay. Yes. I'm following you now.
And then I saw the next image and you're like, too late. I went anyway. And I was like, oh, that's great.
I'm asking for your feedback, but in the end, it really doesn't matter.
And that actually inspired me because my 2-year-old climbed up on his dresser yesterday. And I said, I'm going to pull a page out of Lindsay's book. And I tweeted a picture of, Instagrammed a picture of him up there. and said, should I help him get down? Yes or no? 73% of the people said, no, leave him up there.
Oh, that's what I would call a natural consequence.
Exactly.
You climb up, so then the natural consequence is how you're going to get down.
He said, help me get down, Daddy. I said, you got yourself up there, get yourself down. And I just laid on his bed and wound up teaching him how to jump from his dresser to me on his bed. So
nice.
That's how we roll here.
Backfired on you.
So getting back to Instagram and a point you made about, sharing and being real and authentic. What are the factors that go through your mind about sharing something that is not the glitz and the glam and the positive of our everyday life?
Well, I would say that I have received more feedback from sharing those types of stories in my feed and my story, more so than even, some of the rock star celebration moments, because people crave it. They want to know that not everything and everyone is perfect. And, I'm really careful, like I said before, about kind of making sure that my moral compass is on target as far as protecting kids, protecting my school families, protecting my own kids and my own family, but still, sharing bits and pieces that help people remember this is real life. This is not something that I've created in a fallacy to share with you.
Right. Good point.
And, I just finished pushing into my 5th grade classrooms in the last 2 weeks and teaching a social media etiquette lesson. I actually, by accident, ran across some of my 5th graders' YouTube channels and was not impressed.
Really?
And really. And my son's in 5th grade at my school. And so it really hit home to me that we need to be doing more in our school to make sure our kiddos know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Now, that being said, they were not videos that would get them into any sort of trouble, just things that were just kind of towing the line. And I knew that as adults, they would be embarrassed to go back and watch those videos. And so I pushed into the classrooms and we watched a short video clip, and then we made out of lace doilies a grandma filter. And I asked them to hang it up either in their bedroom or next to their computer, somewhere that they could see it that was visible. And to look at that whenever they were thinking about posting something on social media. Would my grandma approve of this? Yes or no? And if they can say yes without a shadow of a doubt, post, because you can share your story. If your grandma would say that is not a good idea, think twice. And so hopefully if just a couple of kids, learn something from that conversation, I've done my job.
I think that's even going, actually, I was about to say it goes above and beyond, but no, I think that definitely fits in with, again, your morals, your standards, and what you're doing as an educator and, as a leader. So I think that's really valuable. What was the reception or the reaction by the students that you got to work with on this?
I knew that the lesson could either succeed or fail based on those leaders in the class. The ones that if they balk at an idea, the rest of the class does the same. I was so surprised, Chris, at how many kids had questions. And the leaders of the classes were the first ones to ask. And so we did a little activity where I would pose to them something that I was considering posting on a social media platform, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, what have you, Musical.ly. And I would have them hold up their grandma filter if it would pass and put it down if it wouldn't pass. And the conversations that ensued based on those scenarios was so powerful. And it led me to the conclusion that kids don't know. And they haven't thought about it the way that adults think about it, or most adults think about it. And so forcing them to have that kind of metacognition and to think about what they're going to post just helps them pause, I think. That's all I want them to do, is just take a second before you instinctually push that post button.
I love the idea of the grandma filter. And I have not gone the filter route, but I have said to students over the years, whether it's middle or high school, would your grandmother approve? So I bring up, grandma or a grandparent, and you get the smart aleck kid who says, my grandma will say anything. And then I say, and she'll also probably slap you up the backside of your head too, if you actually do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, since we're in two different parts of the country, I'm in New Jersey, you're in Illinois. In that demographic and in your population, what do you find, you mentioned YouTube, that your students at the 5th grade level or other grades you work with, what are their social media platforms that they are leveraging? And what are they on? What are they using?
At the beginning of the lesson that I taught in the classrooms, I wanted to show them how relevant this conversation was to them. And so just by a simple show of hands, I had them raise their hand if they had accounts in each of the social media platforms. And almost 100% of the kiddos raised their hand for something. But the most popular platform that I've seen so far in this area is Snapchat and YouTube. Those two things are, and I would say that Musical.ly is coming in a distant third.
Now, as tech savvy as I am, I'm not so much a musical guy. I mean, I used to do musicals. What is Musical.ly real quick?
So I opened an account on Musical.ly only because one of my students asked me to add her. And I thought, well, if they're inviting me to do this and it's a conversation starter, why not? And so you can record yourself doing an original song that maybe you've written, or choose out of your music library a song that you want to maybe create a music video out of. I bought a Musical.ly shirt off the Kohl's clearance rack for $5. And the number of kids that I interacted with on the day I wore that shirt was incredible because I met them where they were at. Instantly, my cool factor at my school went up 100 points. They were like, you know what Musical.ly is? I said, sure do. Oh, will you add me? Will you add me? Will you add me? And I don't do it as a gotcha. I do it as I want to support you. And if you want to show me what you're creating, that's awesome because that shows me that you're proud of it and you're not embarrassed of it. And if someday you post something that causes me to cringe, that's a conversation that we can have. And that's not me being blind by ignorance, Exactly. Now, based on your explanation of this platform, are you more of a create an original song or are you singing things that you know? I've never posted. It's one app, a social media app that I just haven't really gotten into. I really don't even open it, but I would say like once a month, maybe. I'm just not quite there yet. Now, have you heard of the app Triller? Triller?
I have not. Please explain.
Oh my gosh. It is like the best, easiest thing ever for music lovers. So you maybe have seen my videos on Instagram. And if you haven't, scroll through my feed. My daughter and I, that's our favorite thing to do on a weekend or when we're on a vacation. We choose a favorite song that we have, and her favorite artist is Meghan Trainor. And so that was our last one, I think. You can take videos of yourself using different filters, dancing or lip syncing to a song, and you record it 5 different ways or less or more, and it compiles those into a music video. And it's the coolest thing, and it's so easy to use. I did it with a student last week who was stuck inside for recess because he has a cast. And we were laughing so hard doing a Michael Jackson movie. Oh my goodness. Best memory ever.
I just, while you're talking about it, I pulled up the page here in the browser, and I could definitely, this is one I would use by myself, but I could definitely now use this. My 5-year-old, he's quite the ham. So.
Oh, yes.
We could bring this to the next level.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And you can use it as a social media platform too, that you share those videos, publicly. I haven't done that. I haven't seen a need to do that. But yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and actually what you had said about, if on any of these platforms, if you're connected and you see somebody doing something that maybe they're not aware of, the negative implications it could have. I had to do that just this week I teach a couple of courses at Rutgers University. And so I'm working with, 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds. And we utilized Twitter. And one of the young ladies in the class followed me. And I saw her profile picture and I said, I think that's somebody in my class. And I looked and it was her. And then I was looking at stuff that she was posting and I was like, oh my gosh, what is she doing with her social media footprint? So I actually took her aside after class last week and I said, you need to either lock this down or you need a more professional account. And she had this look of surprise, like, what do you mean? And I just had to go through within a couple of minutes, like digital citizenship. And this is with somebody in their early 20s who was just like memeing it up and F this and S that. And just with the pictures. And I was like, this is not how you want to be presenting yourself. So.
And they have no idea, unless someone like you has that explicit conversation and, brings attention to it. Yeah, I don't know. That's just a scary thing. I would not want the spiral bound notebook that my friends and I passed back and forth in high school to follow me around the rest of my life.
The book at the bottom shelf in the back of the library. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and within 24 hours, I can happily say she created a new account. We're still following each other on the one that I questioned her about, but she has since locked it down. She listened.
That's
I reached
awesome.
one kid.
That's the first thing I do. When I interview a candidate for a position, no matter if it's a certified or non-certified position, the first thing I do is Google their name. And then I look for them on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube. And when I told my fifth graders that, they were in shock. And actually one of them called me a creeper. And I said, I will wear that label proudly, because if being a creeper means only wanting to give you the best example of an adult possible, guilty as charged.
Yeah. And how many kids who are computer savvy will not hesitate to, we have a new teacher. They're going to Google them and see what's out there on their teachers. So we need to be doing that first.
So I know that a lot of people go back and forth about whether or not it's appropriate to have, kids following you on your social media platform or you following kids on your social media platform. My big thing is that if you don't do anything, you being the grown up, you're not doing something that is embarrassing or against the law or providing a bad example for kids. Why not? Why not?
I think that's what it's all about. Being the example. We talk about, a chemistry or a physics teacher wouldn't not model a lab and how to do an experiment. They're not just going to hand the kids the chemicals and say, good luck, put your goggles on. They need to model it. So social media, how to be a responsible citizen and leverage these platforms, we need to be modeling as well.
Mm-hmm. So true.
So the last thing that I thought that we would hit on would be some of maybe your tips or recommendations on how to leverage it. Maybe your favorite filter or some ways maybe that you app smash Instagram with other things. And I know that primarily you use Instagram more for family, but based on your experience, how would you leverage it more? Or would you recommend to a teacher or a leader in education to use Instagram with their school community?
The big value that I've seen for myself and my staff as kind of secondary Instagram users through me is that there are so many educators posting amazing ideas, tips, strategies, tools for your toolbox, either in their story and on their feed. I can't tell you the number of times that I have screenshot a great idea and pushed it out to my staff through Voxer or email. And within a week, I'm doing walkthroughs in classrooms and I see a teacher implementing that idea. And it just makes things accessible. It gets your wheels spinning and turning. And that's what I hope to do through Instagram is, yes, I post some personal things mixed with professional things. Most educators are also parents. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm balancing that educator, parent, mom, wife title, sometimes in failure, but regardless, I want to give you a tip or a strategy or an idea or something that I've tried and hasn't worked, because maybe you can give me some feedback on what I can do to fix it, to make it work. Or maybe you can walk away and say, oh, I want to try that, but I'm going to do this to it instead. I just think it flattens those walls and makes ideas and people accessible.
I love that. I've been saying for years that my classroom has no walls. And if someday I am a school leader of some sort, my building will have no walls. And it's great to share with what you're doing with the entire world, because I think that's the world we live in, and it's only going to get better, I think.
I totally agree. And as long as whatever you're posting is actually who you are or who your school is, I'm not posting something on our school Facebook page that's not real life. I'm not posing kids in pictures of things that we're not actually doing. What you see is what you get. And I think parents appreciate that, because I am not creating something that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I said it. If I didn't, let me say it. You're authentic and you're genuine.
Thank you. I try. I really do.
And you know, for those that are not connected with you, take a moment and let people know where they can connect, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Voxer. How could people connect with you and learn more from you?
Well, on Instagram, since that's my preferred social media outlet at the time being, I am principal_in_boots. Because if you didn't already know, I live on a farm.
Yes, I was going to say, I want to get into that with you because I had already heard the story. So if you want to learn more about Lindsay's background, I'm going to refer you to the Principal PLN podcast, and I'll link to her recent appearance on their 89th episode in the show notes for this episode. And she had a great conversation with, I think it was just Spike and Teresa that day, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
She definitely shares more about her background, but I didn't need to give you guys her background because we wanted to talk about Instagram and social media today. But yeah, she rocks the farm. She rocks the boots, horses. There's all sorts of animals and things that appear in her feed, and her awesome kids. So yeah, there you go.
You never know what you're going to get. Every day's a surprise.
In so many ways.
Yeah, to me too sometimes. To me too.
So, Lindsay, thank you so much for a little bit of your time here for the House of EdTech. I really appreciate you stopping by and sharing your perspective on Instagram.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
Awesome. And can I put you on the list of people I could bring back in the future?
Of course, anytime.
Yes, because, and I'm going to leave this in. I want to give you what I think is another good compliment. I follow you on Instagram, and I think you remind me of a celebrity that I am also a big fan of. And if you've heard this before, you'll laugh. If not, you'll be like, huh, or you may not agree. And sometimes I tend to be wrong with these things, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway.
Okay.
You remind me of, from The Big Bang Theory, Kaylee Cuoco.
Oh, that's hilarious. You know what? Someone just told me that like 3 days ago on Instagram. And I said, I will take it. Compliment. I will take it.
Every time I see you come up, I'm like I enjoy your stories. I enjoy your pictures. And I'm like, she looks like Penny. She looks like Penny. She looks like Penny. So, I mean, that's not why I hang around, but you know, I enjoy the stories.
That's awesome.
Just something that popped in. All right. So yeah, I'll leave that in there. So thank you for coming by the House of EdTech.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
And now for a House of EdTech VIP. This episode's House of EdTech VIP is Jody Pierpoint. Jody has been an educator for 18 years, serving as a special education teacher at both the high school and elementary levels, and as a school counselor. During her career, Jody created and organized Ohio's first special education-based ed camp and has presented several professional learning opportunities for educators. Jody is also the mind behind the Dream Big Mentorship, which was started in the fall of 2017. The goal of the program is to connect aspiring leaders with current leaders for organic one-to-one mentoring experiences, usually done virtually. I am actually part of this cohort, and I got to be honest, Jody has something good here. If you are an aspiring leader, connect with Jody on Twitter at Jody Pierpoint. I think you're going to love this opportunity to connect with Jody. And Jody, you are this episode's House of EdTech VIP. Thank you for checking out this episode of the House of EdTech. Thank you again, Christopher Nesi, for letting me sit in the power chair for this episode. I hope you're feeling better soon. This was a lot harder than I expected. I gotta be honest with you. I know there was a couple of foul tips along the way, but hopefully in the end, I hit this one out of the park for you. And for the listeners, please feel free to connect with me on Twitter at AJ Bianco. And you need to keep this conversation going. Chris and Lindsay would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this and every episode. For this episode, go to chrisnessy.com/103 or send a message by going to chrisnessy.com/feedback. If you enjoy the House of EdTech, come on, tell somebody about the podcast. Share it on social media. Use the hashtag House of EdTech. Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at House of EdTech. And you can also become an awesome supporter. Special thanks goes to Eric Kurtz, Dan Gallagher, Peggy George, Jen Giffen, Mark Grundell, Jeff Herb, Scott Titmus, and Brent Warner for all your support. If you are interested in becoming an awesome supporter, go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The next episode of House of EdTech number 104 will have Chris back as the host. I know, I'm sorry, but he'll be sharing a conversation with Richard Byrne from freetechforteachers.com. Episode 104 will be released on February 25th, 2018. Until next time, thank you for learning with me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.
The House of EdTech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com. The House of EdTech is a proud member of Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here. For more great content, go to voiceed.ca.